Drive Italian, wear Japanese, drink Mexican. It used to be drink Russian, but I had to change it.
Welcome back to Watches and, a podcast that explores watches and something else. And today it's watches and automotive culture with Mai Ikuzawa, who is the creative zeitgeist, the creative force behind Team Ikazawa, who you might recognize from recent collaborations with Tag Heuer. That red and white Tag Heuer that was also a collaboration with a friend of mine. You might know who that is, George Bamford. He travelled to Japan to launch the watch, spent some time with Mai too. I spent a very enjoyable hour and a half with Mai in Zermatt in Switzerland, and we talked about all things watches, all things life, all things design. Now, Mai, by her own admission, is a budding watch enthusiast, but if you are going to learn anything from this conversation, it's that watch design and watch culture can spring from unexpected places.
It was very difficult in that era to go into Formula One as an Asian person. It was just the wrong era. He never faced racism, but even a Japanese manufacturer would not sign a Japanese driver. It was just the wrong timing. But, he was there with Ronnie Peterson and Fittipaldi. You could just throw names and he was racing with them.
Do me a favor. Tap on your keyboard, Google Mai Ikuzawa, and I'll save you the results. But you will see that Mai's actual title on Google, which I think is grossly unfair, though I do understand it, is daughter of Tetsu Ikazawa. Now, Tetsu Ikazawa was, in his era, the most famous Japanese race car driver. And this was not just because he was extraordinarily talented and very daring on the course. He was also something of a style icon. The image results for Tetsu Ikazawa are worth the time alone. So it is absolutely not surprising that Mai is a very stylish person. As we sit here in this little tea room in Zermatt, Mai looks immaculate. She's wearing a varsity jacket in this red and white Team Ikazawa colors. She has glossy black sunglasses propping up glossy black hair, and she truly is a picture of style and class. Her style in person as a conversationalist, you will hear, is she's curious, she's clever, and she's cheeky. And you can see how these wonderful attributes combine to make her such an in-demand creative director and a brand consultant whose mission, as she says, is to inject adrenaline and creative edge into the world's leading automotive, action sports, and luxury brands. So how's that angle working out for Mai? Pretty damn well right now. She is on the Aston Martin advisory board. She was named as one of Louis Vuitton Japan's new women. She was in ID magazine as one of the most influential and active women of our times. And Mai was behind the latest Moncler We Love Winter, Fall, Winter campaigns. So Mai is a super active, impressive human being. I loved my time. I hope you do too. This is a very free-ranging chat, but it encompasses brands like Seiko and Tag Heuer and really gets into the way that watches have infiltrated automotive culture over the years, and from the bird's eye view of the daughter of one of the sports, the automotive industry's most colorful characters. Let's go.
So how do you get from here to Courchevel?
Yeah, Courchevel, it's going to be a car transfer.
From here?
Yeah.
To Courchevel?
Yeah.
How long is it?
You know the area better than me. Is that a bad idea?
Courchevel. I don't even know where.
I wanted something more Bond.
Bond. Okay. Oh, okay. Like
as in I wanted some sort of Bond style transfer.
Passenger drone or something.
Like a skyhook.
Skyhook. Why not? We could arrange that.
I know. Well, I'm with the queen of Japanese street fashion automotive culture. If it's ever going to happen, it could happen with you. Some sort of like vintage car could pick us up?
Vintage car could pick you up, or I don't know. I'm thinking these days just to go a little bit futuristic.
You would go futuristic?
I think so. Concorde would be great.
If everyone was dressed like period correct?
Oh my God.
Now, how would Team Ikazawa take me from, don't laugh this off, how would Team Ikazawa take me from here to Courchevel?
First checkpoint, it'll be downhill mountain bike.
Okay.
I think you need to have the thrill.
The adrenaline's got to surge.
Yeah, I think so. Not about luxury. That's really important, that you're a little bit wild to be Team Ikazawa.
Okay, a bit bold. What am I wearing, by the way? I'm loving this fantasy. I'm in for this.
Now, this is getting kinky.
It would be selvage? Go with me.
Leather.
Oh, now.
Full leather.
Can it be white with stripes?
White leather.
Mm-hmm.
White leather boots.
Yes.
Gloves, obviously.
Obviously. Is there some sort of trim?
Oh, studs.
Studs, okay. I was picturing like mink or something.
Mink.
I'm dressed. I've done the mountain bike in leather, which was uncomfortable, but I did it.
Oh, yes. Oh. Anyway, be well equipped always.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you mind if we start with a confession?
Oh.
Is that okay?
Okay.
No, so the confession is, it's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay.
My name is, and I am a watch person. Would you mind doing that for me?
Okay, fine. My name is Mai Ikuzawa. I am a rookie watch person.
I'll take that. Given that you're a like black belt or whatever comes above that in many other things, I think that's acceptable.
I know nothing about watches, so this
is going to be interesting because everybody listening is watch obsessed, and hopefully not just watch obsessed, because we want to bring the rookies with us, don't we? Because the future's all about the rookies.
I think so. And what's important is to have a clean slate. We'll discover the watch that I possibly would like and discover something that maybe you don't know anything about.
Through this conversation?
Yeah, why not?
The burners are back on me. I've done my mountain biking. Anyway, that's good. So we've started this podcast by taking me across the mountains on a mountain bike. But let's come back to you, because I would like to know, having sort of lowered expectations, what you're wearing. If you're not wearing a watch, we're off to quite a bad start.
I am wearing a watch.
Yay.
Wait, you don't want to see my watch?
Is it an Apple Watch or a
Yes.
Garmin? It is, okay.
Unfortunately. But historically, Team Ikuzawa does have a kind of a significant watch, I think. I don't know. Is it significant?
No, it does. It has, and this is what saves you, Mai. I mean, obviously there's more to you than your watch obsession. And that can't be said for everybody on this podcast, me included. But I need to talk a little bit about you, because is it fair to say that you and your dad have been the main drivers of Japanese fashion and automotive culture between you? Is there anybody who's done more for both than you? I'm not sure there is.
Oh, you're so sweet. I think fashion will be claiming too much, but I think it goes back to my grandfather. So my father's father, he was quite a successful artist. So that kind of creative eye came from my grandfather. And I guess the success with the wealth allowed my father to race globally at such a difficult era, which is the 60s and 70s. And should I go into the history of my father?
I definitely want to know more, because my history with Team Ikazawa, just to insert this very long story in, is about 8 seconds long, which is... I needed to change, because we record about effing time, 6 episodes in one day. One day, I ran out of clothes, and I said to George, do you have that white T-shirt that you sometimes wear? And he said, yeah, sure. So it was all pressed, and it had pleats in the arm. It was just perfectly pressed, and it was a Team Ikazawa T-shirt, and I just loved that T-shirt. And after I said to him, George, please can I keep this T-shirt? And I think probably because I'd sweated in it so much, he let me have it. That was my experience of it. But I met you last night, and I said, please tell me everything, because this T-shirt's so cool. But I realized that's the smallest tip of the iceberg, because it does have a long story behind it.
It does have a long story behind it. And I just think that it's really relevant today. I'm sort of like a historian as well. I feel that Japanese automotive or racing has always been on the back foot, never really celebrated. And again, I inherited this creative gene. So my day job, as you say, is a creative director. And I work a lot in fashion, luxury, not just automotive.
What have been some recent roles of yours, just to give people a sense of you outside of your dad's story? Because that's what this podcast is about. Your dad is obviously a big part of Time Ikuzawa, the founder, the originator, but tell me about you. How do you come into it?
Apart from being a full-time mother of hyperactive children, my day job is a creative director, art director. I put that in a kind of past tense, but it's also active, a design agency based in London. I did that for many, many years. I've downsized only because I travel so much. I just couldn't sustain one office that I commute to every day. These days, you could actually work from home and hire people project by project basis. And that's the most effective way. And it's more creative to work in that setup. And so I'm living between London and Chamonix in the French Alps, which is quite unique. I don't know. I like to reboot and recharge from the altitude. I mean, there's so much adrenaline from that environment, but also I'm very well connected to the cities as a kind of a cliche lifestyle. I work very closely in the automotive, action sports and fashion.
Can we get a little braggy here? Give me some clients. Who are you working with? Who have you worked with recently? What's some of your proudest moments?
Proudest moments. I have some big moments now that I can't talk about.
Oh, my.
No, I can't talk about this. There's some incredible things happening.
Your Chamonix as a location, skiing, etc. It has some connection to your partner in crime.
My husband.
Yes.
Yes. So the reason why we have a base in Chamonix is because my partner has a very successful ski brand called Black Crows. He was a professional skier, a legend for many, many years until he discovered that there were no skis available that performed as great as he could. So he built one pair of magnificent skis with his ski partner, and then that became a very successful brand a few years later.
When you told me your husband something Black Crows, I just immediately, as a music freak, I just connected all these dots. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to Chris Robinson's wife. This is the woman that followed Kate Hudson. I went through this whole spiral of telling you how much I love the Black Crows, and then I worked out it wasn't the band.
I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
As a non-skiing person, there may be many people who would fan over your husband, as I would Chris Robinson. I think after the pandemic, a lot of people did a similar thing. They realised that with remote working, they could live in a more inspiring and more spacious place. We did something similar kind of by accident. We moved from inner city Melbourne to Mount Eliza, which is on the Mornington Peninsula. We have an acre and it's near the beach. But we did that just before the pandemic, which was lucky. But it's a different life, isn't it? Because in some ways you learn to love the city again. And I think you can, instead of recharging with nature, you actually go back and plug in and get the frantic, nice nature.
That's a really good point, to replug. I think that's a better term. Yeah, replug. Yes, replug. If you talk about Chamonix, it's probably the mecca for action sports. You have the best athletes of the world coming here, not just for the winter sports, but alpinism is a great thing. It's very, very international. You're only doorstep away from Geneva, the mecca of watches, and 2 hours from Milan by car. You know, you're very, very well connected. But obviously, also what's good is you bring people, you invite people to Chamonix. They're so relaxed, happy.
It's the altitude. They just get a little bit drunk.
You just make your deals there and then. You know, clients are much more relaxed there.
I don't have a saying that I live by, and after hearing yours, I think I need one. Do you still live by this very popular Mai Ikuzawa phrase, ethos?
Which one?
Tell me a few that come to mind, and I'll go ding when you hit the right one. Let's play the game.
Drive Italian, wear Japanese, drink Mexican. It used to be drink Russian, but I had to change it.
Does that mean tequila? You're now a tequila convert?
I love tequila.
Why?
It's the go-to. We're talking of tequila. I was at the Ice San Moritz last week. You might know this event. It's the most spectacular classic car concours d'elegance in San Moritz. And there's a lot of tequila flowing.
That's a new thing. I wasn't into tequila at all until I read Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights. And in that, he talks about his favorite drink of all time, which is called ranch water. Do you know about this? So it's tequila, soda water, and like heaps and heaps of muddled lime.
Oh, wow.
Low calorie,
Yeah.
if you care. absolutely delicious and has that tequila tang. And I drank it all summer, and it was my first summer with tequila, so I'm with you.
Ranch water.
Ranch water.
Let's make it.
And how good is that? Like when people say, what would you like to drink? Everyone's like, oh, Manhattan Cosmopolitan Negroni. I'm like, ranch water, mate.
I like your accent with it as well.
That's my true self lurking underneath this internationalized facade. So this is a podcast about watches, and it is about watch obsession. Would you say that you have so far avoided being a bit addicted to watches, or do you feel some attraction to them?
I have always wanted a watch, always, but I have never found a watch I like. I think I'll be a brilliant collector if I could find the watch.
Can we do this now?
Yes.
So this is turning into a consultancy. Okay. What would be the brief?
So definitely not shrink it and pink it.
Ah, good call. Thanks for the
Yes.
shout out for the podcast. So can I quickly just reference that? So there is a marketing phrase which refers to the laziness of marketers when they are briefed to design a woman's product. They take a man's product, particularly in watches. They shrink it and they pink it. And then if they're really creative that day, they sprinkle some diamonds on it. So that's not the way to your heart.
And they do this in automotive. There's a lot of cars that have been shrunk and pastel coloured.
Yeah.
You ask any woman, a modern woman, independent woman, what car they want. They don't want a small car.
So not shrunk, not shrinked and pinked. Because the part I'm struggling with here is you're a style-oriented person. If you Google Mai Ikuzawa, you will see story after story declaring you a maven of style and fashion culture. How could you really not have a watch this far into your life? I mean, at 25 years old, you should have worked this out by now. No, I struggle to believe that. Can you try to convince me more that you really don't have any idea what watch you would like to buy?
I really struggle. My references might come from automotive. I quite like masculine, angular, minimal styling. I don't know if you would call like Lancia Stratos or...
I see.
Yeah, very linear lines.
That's not... I'm going to have to Google while we talk because nothing's coming to mind as you say these words. So Lancia Stratos...
This is like real Disney description of a car for a non-car audience.
Yeah, it's sort of cartoonish.
This is a modern interpretation.
Okay.
So if you go to like an original...
Yeah, okay.
Can you feel the emotions of
Yeah.
like looking at that?
Yeah. It's not too brutalist. Like it's got slight, not curves, but there's shoulders to the
But
angles.
it's very agile, right?
Yes.
It's quite, I mean, it's a rally car. So it's spectacularly agile.
It's really cool. So this is a difficult thing for me to do right now is to think of a watch that somehow... What's the watch version of a Lancia Stratos? I think we might have to get the listeners to help me with that one.
Also, the complications of, there's another reference, Maserati, they call it the bird cage. It's a most beautiful race car, but interior, it's made of these beautiful, what would you call them, pipes. It's made like a bird cage. It's made of these linear metallic shell, I would call it. And it's just a great combination of engineering with that very high-level Italian aesthetic. Do you have Italian watchmakers?
Absolutely. I feel like you're heading towards a Bulgari.
Okay.
Octo Finissimo.
Oh, yes. I do know this one.
Super
yes.
sleek.
Yeah.
It has angles, but they're somewhat offset by circular subsections.
Yeah.
So instead of like today, I'm wearing a Audemars Piguet Royal chronograph, but these lines are much more harsh and much more, I would say, sharp. So that's not going to work for you. And it's also not particularly elegant for a lady because it's so thick.
It's too much going on for me.
There's a lot going on. Yeah.
It's beautiful, by the way, but it's not for me.
No, that's definitely not the one. But I do feel, that the Octo Finissimo takes these angles and introduces circles. So again, it's that Italian architecture where there can be something with very pronounced structural form, but within that there are alternate forms that and that's the thing about these cars that you've mentioned is that there is something of a smoothing or something of a sleek or agile quality to them in addition to the very sharp lines.
Yeah.
Wow. I need to lie down.
Check the Maserati birdcage because you'll see it's very emotional.
Thanks for bearing with us as we do this. This is the beauty of a podcast. It's just come with us on these things.
You need to explore into the cockpit of this car, and not the modern one.
Let's see. This one. Oh, I see. Yeah. So if you click Maserati birdcage cockpit, and then there's images of this skeletal, almost like a scaffolding. Do you know what? I actually think this is just a bizarre coincidence. This structural form inside the chassis, which is exposed and left to be, I suppose, it becomes an aesthetic element to this cockpit, does remind me of the Roger de Buy Excalibur because it has similar struts and structural forms inside an open case in a similar way that this cockpit does. I'm going to show you this, and there's actually some very daring women's pieces that still have this design language but express femininity. They do have a lot of shrinked and pinks and diamonds, but there's a lot of white ones. And I think maybe let's just have a look at what comes up here. By the way, scintillating podcast form. But hey, Joe Rogan does this with Jamie, so we can do this. Let's go. So you know how there were those jutting sort of architectural forms? This is almost like the structure within that car. But as it happens, the one I just pulled up was pink, small, and had diamonds. But you see, again, there's that sense of...
It's a good basis. Mm-hmm. Go in there, customize this. I think it could possibly work.
Okay, we have a starting point. So look, I feel that if this entire podcast was me trying to find a watch for you, that I would fail abjectly. But it is interesting that a watch that was completely randomly pulled out before has those elements inside the Maserati birdcage cockpit. But you see that...
Can you show me the men's version?
The men's version... See, Roger de Buy fit into that skeletonized trope of watchmaking, and they have quite aggressive skeletonization. It's quite aggressively asymmetrical. You know, I think recent Audemars Piguet skeletonized pieces have this beautiful symmetry to their movement architecture, whereas Roger de Buy are almost purposefully asymmetrical. And as you can see here, and I'm looking now at a Roger de Buy Excalibur image search on Google, there's a lot of different examples of this one has blued bridges, but it's taking apart the movement and reconstructing it in a asymmetrical and skeletonized way that has a boldness to it.
Yeah.
A little bit like the Maserati birdcage, but I feel like we've made a start.
I'm a traditionally trained graphic designer. I graduated from Central St. Martin's many years ago. So things like typography, typesetting.
What font is Time Ikuzawa? Because I want to steal that font.
I can't tell you that because then I'll have all the copycats.
That's true. It's not a standard font, is it?
It's refined. It's a refined from a base.
Yeah.
Should we say?
I really want to know.
And it's not just about the font, it's about how you layer, the spatial awareness, the sizing.
The leading.
The leading.
I'm all about it. I'm all about the leading.
Yeah, the kerning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just going to keep throwing out these graphic design words. I'm going to run out really quickly, so I need to get back onto watches. So let's go back, because the story that you told me last night when I said, tell me, because you came up to me and said, you wore my T-shirt on the podcast. Thank you. It was a cool moment. But then when I said, tell me more, you did tell me a sort of potted history of your dad. And the thing that struck me was, A, that you love your dad so much because, as I said, I'm a father of daughters, and I'm like, I want to know how this daughter is still so infatuated with her dad, because I would love that to be the case when my daughters are talking about me in 20 years. But tell me that little potted history, because it was so cool hearing that from you.
Oh, you're so sweet. I remember from our conversation last night how you love to be loved by your daughter like that, which was so sweet and touching. I'm sure they do.
They will. No, they do. They're young. It's probably easier now than in the impending puberty years. But the other thing is, right, it's a common thing for daughters and sons to mock their dad's style. It's a negative term. Dad jeans, dad jokes.
Oh my God, my father's
dad
style.
rock.
I've been embarrassed of my father's style for so many years growing up with this.
You were embarrassed of his style?
Oh my God. You know, when I was growing up, he'll come home because every year he'll change his cars and they'll be customized. They'll be in the color of the sponsor, for example.
Revella, for example, a Swiss brand.
Revella.
So random.
And, they'll be all logoed up and, it's just like, turbocharged. Just humiliating going to school with this, like, very, very styled dad. You don't know it. You don't appreciate it until you get older.
So I'm relieved, though, that you still thought he was the daggiest dad in the world when you were young.
When you have a parent who's just got such a strong personality, good and bad. Of course, we had a lot of falling outs to do because he has such a powerful personality. I don't know if that's the same with all racing drivers, but,
It's not.
It's not.
It's absolutely not. I've met a lot of Formula One racing drivers, and that's not the word I would use to describe them.
And
but he's different. His charisma and personality was transformative, not just for Japanese racing, but for the culture of driving, because reading about him, the words that always come up are just that he was so much larger than life, and the other drivers were just, you're not very Japanese, mate.
No, that's true. The most incredible thing about my father is he never chose the easy path. He could have made a fortune, being signed up by a works team. They would have thrown salary at him.
Was he that good? Like,
he was very good.
skill-wise?
He was really, really good. And he proved himself in Formula 3, Formula 2. It was very difficult in that era to go into Formula 1 as an Asian person. It was just the wrong era. He never faced racism, but even a Japanese manufacturer would not sign a Japanese driver. It was just the wrong timing. But, he was there with Ronnie Peterson and all, Fittipaldi, or, you could just throw names and he was racing with them. He'll have like hat tricks of wins in a day. He was the first Le Mans driver. He won at Nürburgring. He had a team in Isle of Man TT. He's done everything. He's just like an undiscovered, oh my God, you've done that. He even had a Formula One team for like a millisecond. Unfortunate events of the Kobe earthquake at the time, all the sponsors pulled out and it never got on the grid. But everything he wanted to do, he did. And not only just that, he always almost entered as a privateer and he won. And he became a hero. And the two, I guess, iconic moments in car history was that he became the Skyline legend and he won, or he beat a very sleek Porsche. I don't want to get too technical because this is about watches.
No, do. Go there. Just go deep on it.
But he basically overtook a Porsche Carrera 4 at the time in a very boxy post-era Nissan. It was a Datsun, no, a Prince at the time. And the whole grandstand just stood up, just praised my father. And then the other time he was a privateer Porsche driver in a very, very important race in Japan. And he won against all the big works teams and became a national hero. And I think it's not just being a stronger driver, but he was just immaculately stylish. The way he dressed himself in the pit lane, the way he marked his race cars with the liveries, he was just so into the details.
He was a chameleon too, because I looked back through his archives and he just kept changing. There's like a cowboy era. There's a feather boa era. There's an Adam Driver era where he looks, it's the House of Gucci sort of look going on with the big sunglasses. He was like a rock star that just kept reinventing himself.
Yeah. There's a very iconic picture of him with a bold Afghan coat with these massive tinted glasses in front of his Porsche.
Leaning on the doors.
Leaning on
I've seen this photo.
the
It's
Porsche
amazing.
Targa. There's just his archive of images is beyond anything you've seen before. And for me, I think it's just really important to tell the history of him.
And this went as far as to influence a ballet campaign a few years ago.
Yeah, many, many things, yeah.
And do you think that, this might be borderline stereotyping, but is it fair to say that flamboyant Japanese character that at Pitti or these great fashion fairs, it's a Japanese oeuvre now or a trope? Did that exist before your dad?
I think, to be honest, if you look at like Kenzo, Yoji Yamamoto, they are legends, but less so back in the days of when my father was doing his shit, you know?
He did some proper shit. Like that is, if you want to have an enjoyable Google Tetsu Ikazawa and just go straight to the image tab and just enjoy, because it's an incredible mix of vintage automotive culture and style. And you talk about, charisma being a part of Formula One. Charisma is not a part of Formula One. You just need to watch Drive to Survive to see that, which I love, and neither is fashion. So it truly was, he was a lightning bolt. And I want to point to something here, because in the same way that maybe a Japanese team would not have had a Japanese driver, I want to hear about this rock star persona he had, or this rock star appreciation he had from the Japanese, because ultimately he became a Seiko ambassador. And this is where 95% of the audience tunes back in. Watches. He's talking about watches again. He was the cover boy for a Speed and Spirit advertising campaign for Seiko, and it was featuring a Seiko speed timer model, which I have to say, if that was released this minute, it it would be wildly popular. It has an integrated steel bracelet. It has this stunning racing dial. It has this black and red and white color scheme. It's just beautiful. Do you want to have a look at it? I have it up here on the screen. See this?
Yeah.
And this is your dad. So he's not only sponsored by Seiko as a driver, but he was also featured in a huge advertising campaign for the Speed Timer, which is, to my eyes, it is that cushion-cased Speedmaster 2 Amiga-style piece, which is still wildly popular. So he obviously went from being, I would say, well, if you talk about a Japanese racing team not having a Japanese driver, that maybe that over time that became something that the Japanese were very proud of, for them to put him forward as an ambassador.
I'm not sure. Correct me. I think there were 2-3 models of this. I think there was one that with a yellow face and one with a blue face. I'm not quite sure, but I see them lying around in the house.
Does your dad ever wear watches like this that are part of his history?
He should do. He's I mean, if you read some of his recent press articles, he's a hoarder, like a mega hoarder. So he'll probably have his own collection of about 50 of those, probably. But never wear them because it's too precious.
I definitely need him to be on this podcast.
But I think through the power of Instagram, I do have watch collectors contacting me about this watch. Apparently, within the kind of the geeks of this particular watch, they call it the Ikuzawa model. I don't know if that's an official fact or not, but I think there's a group of very, very, what's the very polite word, informed the collectors of this watch that release books every year.
Mm-hmm. They are going to shred me for my lack of knowledge on that. I just think it's fascinating that he was such a rock star. They were selling watches off the back of his success in driving. And of course, this continued to the present, where we have a connection with Tag Heuer. These 2 models that Tetsu has been interviewed about by the Tag Heuer team, and that is the Chronosplit Manhattan GMT, which is this really interesting, I would say it's a coffin-shaped case. It's a really avant-garde design piece by Heuer. And then we have a Monaco with racing stripes, with a white dial, a little bit, just picture the Golf model of the Monaco, and you're getting close to the picture. But another 2 models that is associated with his journey in motorsports.
Yeah, I think, that'd be great, wouldn't it? With such a deep roots in motorsports, it'd be great to have a Tag Heuer Ikuzawa model, wouldn't it?
As long as the storytelling, because I want to give you another compliment. So last night at dinner, and full disclosure, we are meeting at a Hublot event in Zermatt.
Yes.
And it is all around Daniel Arsham being the new ambassador for Hublot.
Fantastic.
And in fact, do you think that's fantastic? Why so?
When I saw his presentation yesterday, I could see the parallels of why there's that significant match between the two. I love Daniel's work, as a person as well. He's so super intelligent, super creative. And I think to take Hublot into the next level, I think he'll be the best curator.
The only thing I would have done to improve yesterday was, because he was announced as an ambassador, it has certain associations. And I don't think they're the right associations. I actually think what they're embarking on with Daniel is closer to a creative directorship, where they've said to Daniel, work with us on time, because Daniel's obsessed with time.
All about time, yeah.
All his work, I mean, not all of it, I guess. There's a basketball sort of in a sheet on a wall. There's some more simple and visceral things, but his real, I suppose, calling card is that erosion technique, which hints at the passing of time.
The futuristic relic.
The future relics, yeah, and how he's obsessed with how things will be in the future. And the interesting thing is, in this hotel, we are at the Schweizerhof Hotel in Zermatt. If you look through the gym windows, you see this decaying building only 20 meters across a grassy verge that is just clearly abandoned, probably has squatters in it. I don't think so in Zermatt, in Switzerland. I don't think you can squat in the Alps. I think you would just freeze instantly. But it's so fascinating I've always had an obsession with decay, but I agree with you, and I think he's a great ambassador. But his head designer last night, Austin Snyder, who I think you know, lovely man.
Amazing.
Lovely man. I said, you were seated at our table, and I just quietly said, so what's your understanding of Time Ikazawa? And he just looked at me with this sort of wide eyes and said, well, it's a powerful brand. I said, yeah, but how would you describe its power? And he's just said storytelling.
Oh, I love Austin. It is about storytelling. You're right.
What does he mean?
It's not about motorsports. It's beyond that. It's about the experience, ultimately, it's about enjoyment. I would never go and sponsor a Le Mans team today. We have such a breadth of history and achievements. And the core of the philosophy is about being the privateer underdogs and just going out there.
What does privateer mean? Help me with that.
That you're not the official corporate entity of, I don't know, big players, the Porsches, the Mercedes, the Audis, You're just tinkering with you and your mates,
Well, now that we're back on cars, I do want to bring up an area that we really coalesce on. So what are your favorite Japanese car brands? It'll be that thing where I just look really excited when you say the one that I also love. Think of Dad's.
Mitsubishi?
Oh, it's not that bad. It's close. No, it's Subaru.
Oh, Subaru. But I drive a Subaru.
I'm exclusively a Subaru
Oh,
driver.
really?
I have 4 Subarus.
Which ones?
I have a 2006 WRX.
Yeah.
I have a Hawkeye 2006 WRX. That's my pride and joy. And the rest are just people movers. I have Forester. I only have 2 at the moment, actually. I have 4 cars, and the other one's a Discovery, like just big people movers, mostly tractors. But my favorite is the 2006 Hawkeye WRX in silver, which is unfortunately a bit like a Daniel Arsham artwork. It is slowly deteriorating and eroding in my Australian, environment of climate change. But I love the brand because the cars always start every single time. And the WRXs are just angry little Hornet go-karts, but they're so fun to drive. Absolutely no suspension, zero comfort. If you drive over 100 kilometers in the car, you get out looking like a senior citizen, but that's not the point.
The seat is pretty uncomfortable. Yeah. I have a 2007 Hawkeye.
You do too? What color?
Blue with the gold rims.
Oh, that's hot. And it's STI, right?
STI, yeah.
Nice.
Pro Drive, yeah.
And the pink touches?
Yes, pink touches, of course, yeah.
Wow.
It's such a underrated car. So much fun to drive.
Yeah.
I put huge lamp pods in the front, like a rally car. Because I live between London and Chamonix, it's just the perfect car. And I have a Forester as well.
Yes.
And yeah.
The queen of automotive culture in Japan drives Subaru. It's like, and Foresters too. Hopefully like an original model with the Tahoma font. Do you remember that? Do you remember the font of the first Forester? It was like that sort of wood cabin style font. You would know it.
Yes. When is my car? I think it's a 90s one. It's a really boxy grey import.
I think it could be.
It's fantastic. It's white with the pink trims.
Oh, nice. It's unkillable.
Everybody looks at it, it's like, what?
Yeah.
I told you originally, I'm really into the very boxy linear designs, and this has got such a very heavy base.
It's a tractor. It's a big, ugly tractor, and it never lets you down. I feel just tremendously validated by that because I've always felt that somehow, like New Balance sneakers, worn with like a barbecue apron, you might laugh at the dad, but he's going to have his day. And you know what? He did.
He did.
And maybe if I just stick at it with the Forester as well, it's going to somehow have a kitsch value.
I think it's really gone up in value now. You should.
Has it really?
Of course.
Oh, amazing.
If you go to the recent car auctions, you'll see like a huge rise in prices of rally cars and Japanese cars.
Yes, because I think our Hawkeye was before they started limiting the turbo.
Oh, okay.
As well. It was the last model before. I don't know anything about cars. So
yours is a barn find now, probably.
Oh, I think so. Well, it literally will look like it's been in a barn, especially after this 3 months in London. But Mai, thank you so much for joining this podcast.
Oh, my God.
I had no idea where it would go. It didn't really go into watches all that much, but I feel like maybe there could be, I might wake up at 3 a.m. and just be like, this model for you.
I think we need to find somebody who design a watch that suits my taste.
I'm spinning through my Rolodex. I know some people.
I think the industry needs some kick-ass women designers.
Yes.
Just to really give opinions.
I actually was thinking of a woman, actually. I will tell you, her name is Carol. She's worked at Cartier. She's worked at other brands. She's the head of complications. I won't say her full name, but she is an absolute kick-ass woman in design, but also in complication design. And I think for you, your eye is attracted to that complicated form that has a nice symmetry and structure to it. To me, it sounds like you're heading towards a complicated watch, as in with functions, and also a skeletonized watch, potentially. But I also think the case is key for you. So
Yes.
I'm going to keep thinking about it. Maybe it is a case of it doesn't exist, so we have to invent it.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks so much. And everybody, please get on board Team Ikazawa. I'm not entirely sure what to say about how to join the Team Ikazawa. Do you go and buy merch? Do you buy apparel? How do you support it?
You don't need to. I'll hand out merch. I mean, it's all about just bringing people together. It's about the team spirit. I don't care about people buying stuff. I think it's just bringing the right people together. And that's what the spirit of the club is.
Okay.
I've met so many wonderful people by just having this little logo on the breast.
It has a power. I can't properly explain it, but I do hope that it does find its way into a watch collaboration. I can see in this age of collaboration that logo, the aesthetics, the color scheme, things are moving more bright, things are moving more white. There's obviously watches that have racing stripe design that I think are very popular. So fingers crossed, Mai.
Thank you. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. So there you have it. Is there anything more charming in a person than curiosity? Is there anything more disarming than someone being as open as Mai was to the whole crazy direction of that conversation? It went into some really interesting places. It was fun to listen back and realize that we were effectively choosing Mai's future watch and then deciding that as a designer and as a creative person, she was really gravitating to designing her own, which, she went on and did with Tag Heuer, with the Carrera, with a very cool racing stripe design that was collaborated on with my good friend George. Thanks for listening to Watches And. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you to Mai Ikuzawa for so much of your time. And also thank you always to my audio engineer extraordinaire, Darren. Thanks for making this sound even better than the real thing. Have a great time until you hear from me again. And I will look forward to that. Goodbye.